The galaxy was wide, endless, and filled with countless voices. Stars burned like lanterns in the darkness, and between them drifted the great ships of hundreds of species. The Galactic Council kept order, or at least tried to, while merchants, wanderers, and fleets crossed the void. For centuries, peace, though fragile, had been the song of the stars. But peace can be broken by the smallest sound. That sound came as a faint signal. At first, it was ignored, just another burst of radiation among millions of natural pulses. Yet when the deep-range scanners studied it closer, the patterns became clear. It was not natural. It was not random. It was a signature, strong, heavy, unlike anything the analysts had seen in their lifetimes. The technicians inside the monitoring station stared at the glowing screen. Numbers scrolled and energy readings climbed higher than expected. The shape of the signal was wrong. Too sharp, too raw, too dangerous. Then one of them whispered a word that had not been spoken in centuries. Human. The room went silent. Across the Council's communication web, the message spread quickly. A warship had been detected at the edge of the Perseus arm. Not an ordinary warship. Something far older, far heavier. It moved slowly, yes, but its engine trail was thick with power, and its hull reflected scars from battles long past. Old records were opened. Files sealed in dust and memory were recalled. They spoke of a species that once burned brightly in the galaxy, a species called humanity. Most of the younger races had only heard fragments of their story. Tales of a people who lived on a death world, a planet where storms crushed mountains and predators never slept. Tales of warriors who fought until their bones broke, who turned every weakness into a weapon. And then, just as suddenly as they had risen, humanity vanished. No wars had ended them. No enemy had claimed their worlds. They had simply gone. The galaxy assumed they destroyed themselves, burned out by their own violence. Others believed they retreated into silence, tired of endless conflict. For hundreds of years, the galaxy lived without them, and many were glad for it. But now a warship was returning. The first clear images came from long-range telescopes. The vessel was massive, its armor thick with blackened plates. It did not shine with elegance like council cruisers. It was not graceful. It was brutal. The shape of its hull was like a predator's jaw, with weapon batteries lined across its sides. Some weapons looked older than most civilizations. Others seemed too advanced to be understood. The ship carried no insignia, no flag, only a name etched deep into its scarred hull. Though distance blurred the image, one word could still be read. A human word. A name of defiance. The analysts stared at it with a mix of awe and fear. They knew what it meant. This was not just a relic. This was a message. The council chambers erupted with noise when the report arrived. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate military response. Others trembled at the idea of even approaching the vessel. "Are you certain?" one asked, his voice breaking. "Yes," the messenger replied. "There is no doubt. Humanity has returned," fear spread quickly. The myths had painted humans as monsters wrapped in flesh, a species too stubborn to die. To the gentle races of the council, the thought of their return was not comforting. It was terrifying. No one knew why the warship had come. Was it invasion, revenge, or something worse? But as the signal pulsed again, steady and cold, every world felt the same chill. The galaxy had been silent for too long. Now the silence was broken, and the echo of war stirred once more. The stars themselves seemed to whisper, "The humans are back." The Galactic Council chamber was built to impress. Its walls stretched high, covered with banners of every known civilization. Great lights shone down from the ceiling, painting the hall in silver. It was a place meant to show unity, meant to remind every delegate that together they kept peace across the stars. But on this day, peace was not in the air. Fear was. Representatives filled the seats, their voices rising like crashing waves. The signal had reached them, and the image of the human warship was displayed in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly for all to see. Every scar, every weapon port, every shadow of its hulking frame drew shivers through the room. A tall avian delegate struck his claw against the desk. This cannot be allowed. Humanity was banished long ago. Their violence was poison to the galaxy. If they return, war will return with them. Another, a reptilian with scales that glittered under the light, hissed in reply, "Banished? You speak as if they were criminals. They left on their own. And perhaps they left for good reason. No, cried a voice from the upper levels. Do not be deceived. They abandoned us when peace was finally possible. They cared nothing for unity. And now they come back carrying guns and fire. The chamber grew louder. Words like invasion, threat, and extermination echoed across the walls. The younger races who had never seen a human trembled the most. For them, humans were only nightmares spoken of in childhood stories. Deathworlders who walked through storms and came back stronger, who fought until their enemies begged for mercy. The older species knew better, and that knowledge made them even more afraid. They remembered real wars. They remembered when human fleets had turned the tide against raiders that no one else could stop. They remembered the way humans laughed in the face of impossible odds. And they remembered how quickly they had built weapons no one else could match. A small amphibian delegate tapped the table nervously. We should try to talk to them. If they have returned, perhaps they wish for peace. Laughter answered him, nervous, bitter laughter. Peace? One elder delegate asked. Look at that ship. Do you see peace in its armor? Do you see mercy in its cannons? No, that is a ship built for war, a ship that has survived war. Silence fell for a moment as everyone looked again at the projection. The vessel rotated slowly, its hull etched with deep burns. To some, it looked like a monster waiting to bite. To others, it looked like a survivor, limping home after a long battle. But no one spoke that thought aloud. A counselor from the border worlds finally rose, her voice calm but steady. We cannot agree by shouting. Let us ask the real question. What do they want? Why now, after all these centuries, do the humans return? No answer came. The counselors shifted uneasily in their seats. The truth was simple, they did not know. And not knowing was the worst fear of all. Reports began to arrive one after another. Patrol ships that had approached the warship had gone silent. Not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. Their last transmissions were confused, as if they had seen something they could not understand. And then nothing. That silence spread more panic than any battle. If the humans wished, they could have turned those patrols into dust. But they had not. That uncertainty was like a blade hanging above every counselor's head. Should we gather the fleets? One asked. Yes, another shouted. Strike first before they strike us. No, said a calmer voice. If we attack and they are not hostile, then we begin a war that could end us all. The chamber trembled with arguments. Fear twisted every word. Some wanted war, some wanted peace, but none of them wanted to admit the truth. The galaxy did not know how to face humanity again. And high above them, the image of the warship kept turning, like a silent judge watching their panic. In the end, no vote was taken. No plan was made. Only one thought filled the chamber as the meeting dissolved. The humans had returned. And whatever their purpose was, the galaxy was not ready. The human warship moved through the void like a shadow from the past. It was not fast. It did not shine like the polished vessels of the council. But speed and beauty were never its purpose. Its engines burned low and steady, like the heartbeat of something ancient, and its hull glimmered faintly with the light of distant suns. To the worlds it passed, it felt like the return of a ghost. Pirates were the first to cross its path. A swarm of raider ships, sleek and hungry, tried to trap it near the edge of a trade lane. They had no fear, not at first. To them, it was just another old vessel to tear apart. Easy prey, but prey does not fight like a predator. The raiders launched their weapons, a storm of missiles and plasma bolts. The human ship did not turn, did not retreat. It woke. Its cannons roared, and beams of pure destruction cut through the raider fleet like knives through paper. One by one, the pirates vanished into fire. The survivors tried to flee, but the warship's guns were merciless. Minutes later, only silence remained. The trade lane witnesses reported it with trembling voices. The human ship does not miss. It does not hesitate. It destroys, the council panicked again. If a single vessel could erase fleets, what would happen if more follow? Yet the truth was stranger. The warship never attacked colonies or stations. It never fired first against patrols. It stayed on its path as if it was searching for something. It ignored threats unless forced to respond, and even then its fury was swift and cold. One border colony told a different story. When their life support station malfunctioned, and their distress beacon screamed into the void, the human warship arrived first. Instead of firing, it extended a smaller craft. Figures in heavy suits moved with discipline. repairing the system and leaving without a word. The colonists never saw the faces beneath the helmets, but they heard the voice, human, tired and heavy with silence. They helped us, the colonists swore. They saved us. This only deepened the mystery. Was the warship an invader, a savior, or something else entirely? The younger races whispered in fear. It is a hunter watching us, testing us. The older ones spoke in hushed tones. It is searching. But for what? Every system it crossed sent desperate reports to the council. The warship has passed here. The humans are moving. Each report carried the same unspoken question. Where is it going? Some fleets tried to stop it. Patrol groups lined up, shining bright warnings and demanding identification. But each time the same thing happened. The human ship did not answer. It simply continued forward unstoppable. The patrols gave way, shaken not by force but by presence. Something about the vessel's silence, its scarred armor, its unbroken path, made even the bravest captains hesitate. It was not just a ship, it was a message. Inside the council chambers, fear grew into desperation. They reviewed ancient histories, old treaties, and forgotten battle records. They searched for any clue about humanity's purpose, but the records only deepened their unease. Humans had always been unpredictable. They could be cruel beyond reason, yet they could also sacrifice themselves for strangers. They had built weapons that terrified the stars, yet they had also fought wars to protect weaker species. Now, with this lone warship, they had returned. But no one could read their intent. Across the galaxy, people spoke in whispers. Merchants, soldiers, farmers, and rulers all asked the same question. Why had humanity come back? And why did their ship look as if it had already been through 1,000 battles no one else had ever seen? The warship kept moving, its engines humming like a distant storm. It did not slow. It did not explain. It simply moved closer, step by step, star by star. And with every passing system, the galaxy's fear grew heavier, like a shadow stretching across the stars. The galaxy had watched the human warship drift across the stars like a shadow. It did not speak. It did not explain. It only moved forward, unstoppable, leaving fear and confusion in its path. At last, the council could no longer wait. They gathered their fleets, the finest warships of many species, and formed a blockade at the edge of the Zorath system. Dozens of cruisers, carriers, and escorts hung in formation, weapons charged, their hulls gleaming under the cold starlight. It was a show of strength, meant to remind all that the galaxy stood united. But unity trembled when the human ship appeared. It came slowly, its engines burning low. The silence of its approach was heavier than any threat. The alien captains felt it in their bones that this was no ordinary ship. Its hull bore wounds that no creature could imagine, deep gashes from unknown weapons, scorch marks across plating thicker than a mountain wall. And still, it lived. The fleet commander, an elder being with skin like stone, swallowed his fear and opened the channel. His voice echoed across space. Unidentified vessel, you have entered council-controlled space. Power down your weapons. State your name and purpose. For a long moment, there was nothing but static. The blockade ships tightened formation. Fingers hovered over triggers. Every captain prayed the humans would not ignore them. Then a voice came. It was human. The sound was rough, weary, like gravel under wind, but it carried with it something more. A weight that made every listener lean closer. It was not the voice of a conqueror, nor the laughter of a warrior. It was the voice of someone who had seen too much. This is the Terran warship Vigilant Dawn, the voice said. We are not here for war. We come because we heard the signal. Confusion rippled through the fleet. The signal? What signal? The commander pressed again. Explain yourself. What signal do you speak of? But the human did not answer at once. The silence stretched so long that some feared the connection had broken. Then the voice returned, softer this time, as if speaking to itself. Centuries ago, before we left your space, we built listening posts, beacons hidden at the edges of the void. They were not meant to watch you. They were meant to watch the dark, and now they have awakened. The words fell heavy like stones dropped into deep water. The fleet captains exchanged looks, unsettled. What darkness did the humans mean? The commander tried to press further, but he could feel his crews growing restless. The human voice, though calm, carried a strange power. It was not the voice of a predator stalking prey. It was the voice of someone warning of a storm that others could not yet see. We will not fire unless fired upon, the voice finished. But do not stand in our way. Time is short, too short for fear. And then the channel closed. The blockade fleet sat frozen, weapons charged, orders screaming in their ears. They could fire. They could test their strength against the warship. But no captain moved, because every one of them felt the same truth in their hearts. If they attacked, they would not survive. So as the vigilant dawn moved forward, the blockade broke apart. One by one, ships drifted aside, giving it passage, not because they were ordered to, but because they could not stop it. The human warship passed between them in silence, engines burning like the breath of some ancient beast. Its voice lingered in their minds long after it was gone, a voice that did not threaten but warned, and in that warning, the galaxy felt the first taste of a fear greater than humanity itself. The vigilant dawn passed through the blockade without a single shot fired. The alien fleets drifted aside like leaves before a storm, their captains unable to act against the weight of the humans' presence. But the galaxy demanded answers, and so the Council sent envoys to follow, ships filled not with soldiers but with questions. At last, the warship spoke again. Its message was broadcast across secured channels, reaching every leader, every commander, every frightened world that had been watching. The human captain's voice was the same, rough, weary, carrying the gravity of countless battles. We left this galaxy not to escape but to prepare, the captain began. Your histories do not tell the whole story. While you built fleets to guard your borders, we saw what waited beyond them. We saw the hunger in the dark. The chamber where the council listened grew still. Every delegate leaned forward as the human continued. Centuries ago, our explorers reached further than they should have. Beyond the spiral arms, beyond the quiet stars. There we found something that does not belong to life as we know it, a force that consumes. It does not trade. It does not speak. It does not stop. We called it the Endless Maw. A wave of fear swept the room. The name itself carried weight as if it had been burned into the captain's soul. We fought it, he said simply. Not because we were chosen, not because we were stronger, but because no one else had seen it yet. If we had not fought, it would have followed your trade lanes, your colonies, your worlds. We stood at the edge alone so you could live in peace. The words struck harder than any weapon. The council members exchanged horrified glances. Humanity had not vanished because of self-destruction, as they had believed. Humanity had been fighting a war beyond their sight. The captain's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through. We fought for generations. Our fleets grew smaller with every battle. Our colonies fell silent one by one. We learned to build ships not of beauty but of survival. We taught ourselves to endure what no one else could. And still, the maw comes. For a moment, the only sound in the chamber was the echo of his words. The delegates stared at the image of the human warship, its scarred armor proof of battles already fought. Why return now? A trembling voice finally asked through the channel. If you fought them, why come back to us? The reply was heavy with sorrow. Because we cannot hold them alone anymore. Our lines have broken. Too many of us are gone. The beacons we left have awakened because the maw has moved. It is coming this way, toward your stars, toward your people. The silence that followed was deeper than space itself. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy understood the truth of humanity. They were not monsters returning to conquer. They were guardians who had bled in silence, protecting a galaxy that had forgotten them. But the revelation was bitter. If the humans had come back, it meant the threat was already close. Too close. The captain's voice softened, almost like a plea. Do not waste time fearing us. Fear what follows us. Unite your fleets, gather your strength. Alone you will fall. Together you may endure. That is why we have returned, not as invaders, but as a warning. The message ended. In the chamber, the delegates sat frozen, their hearts heavy. Some wept quietly. Others stared blankly at the floor. All of them felt the same truth pressing on their souls. The galaxy had misunderstood humanity. They had believed the humans dangerous because of their violence. They never realized that violence had been their shield, their sacrifice. And now, too late, they knew the truth. Humanity had returned not with conquest, but with a warning. The real enemy was not the human warship. The real enemy was already on its way. The council chamber did not echo with arguments this time. After the human captain's message, there were no shouts, no demands, no insults hurled across the floor. There was only silence. A silence filled not with pride or arrogance, but with fear. For centuries, the galaxy had convinced itself that peace was secure. They believed their fleet strong enough, their alliances wide enough, their unity firm enough. But now the truth was revealed like a crack in glass. Their peace had existed only because humanity had been holding back the storm. Delegates sat frozen, their eyes fixed on the projection of the vigilant dawn. The scars across its hull looked different now. Not like threats, but like wounds. Not like pride, but like sacrifice. Each mark told a story of a battle fought far away, unseen, unremembered. At last, a voice broke the silence. "They bled for us," whispered a young delegate, her eyes shining with tears. "All this time they fought while we slept." The words spread through the chamber like a wave. Heads lowered. Some wept quietly. Some covered their faces in shame. For generations they had mocked humanity's brutality, their obsession with war, their refusal to yield. And yet, it had been that very nature that allowed them to fight the endless maw. The maw. Even its name filled the chamber with dread. A predator that did not speak, did not trade, did not surrender. A hunger that consumed worlds. How could they fight such a thing? When their fleets had been built only for border skirmishes and patrols, the council leaders sent urgent messages to their fleets. Admirals were called. Engineers were ordered to study the old human designs that still remained in dusty archives. The galaxy began to stir, no longer drowsy with false peace, but awake with desperation. And still the human warship drifted forward. In one of the colonies that had been aided by the humans, children painted the image of the vigilant dawn across the walls. To them, it was no longer a monster from stories, but a guardian, a survivor who had come home. Meanwhile, in hidden conversations, many whispered the question, could they trust the humans? Could they fight beside them after centuries of fear and suspicion? Yet deep down, everyone already knew the answer. They had no choice. Reports continued to arrive, and each one carried more unease. Ships sent to follow the humans reported strange energy readings in the far void. Empty systems suddenly went dark, their stations silent. Scout vessels vanished, their last signals filled with static and screams. The maw was already near. In private chambers, the elder races admitted the truth they had been too proud to say aloud. They could not fight this enemy without humanity. And so, a decision was made. Not through a vote, not through debate, but through silent agreement that spread from world to world. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy would prepare for war not against each other, but against something greater. The awakening had begun. When the vigilant dawn finally reached the heart of council space, the fleets that once trembled at its approach no longer aimed their weapons. Instead, they drifted respectfully aside, bowing in silence to the scarred vessel that carried humanity's voice. From the warship came one last message before it vanished again into the deep stars. "We will not stand at the front forever. This fight will be yours as well. Learn quickly, stand strongly. When the maw arrives, there will be no second chance." The galaxy listened. For the first time, they truly listened, and in their hearts a new understanding grew. Humanity was not their nightmare. Humanity was the reason they had survived this long, but survival, they realized, would soon demand more than gratitude. It would demand everything they had. The galaxy had awakened, but awakening was not the same as readiness. The endless maw was coming, and every world could feel the shadow of its approach. Fleets were being built, alliances forged, but deep inside, fear gnawed at them. Could they really stand against something that had already bled humanity nearly dry? The vigilant dawn remained at the heart of council space for only a short time. It never docked, never rested. It lingered like a ghost, scarred and weary, its presence both a comfort and a reminder of how much had been lost. The delegates begged the human captain for answers, for strategies, for hope. But his replies were simple, stripped of pride or flourish. Fight together. Do not break ranks. Do not waste lives on glory. This enemy will not be impressed by courage. It will only be stopped by unity. These words spread quickly across the stars. Soldiers whispered them before drills. Engineers etched them into shipyards. Even children repeated them as if they were prayers. Still doubts remained. Some races whispered that perhaps humanity exaggerated the threat, that perhaps the maw was not as terrible as the stories claimed. But those doubts began to die when the first real proof arrived. A border system went silent. Entire colonies vanished overnight. The patrol ship sent to investigate transmitted only a few moments of footage, shadows moving in the void, vast shapes that blotted out the stars, and then static. When those recordings were played in the council chamber, not a single delegate spoke. For the first time, they all understood the maw was real. And it was already here. The vigilant dawn did not gloat. It did not remind them that humans had warned of this long ago. Instead, its captain's voice came one last time across the comms, heavy with both sorrow and strength. You feared us. You called us monsters, killers, destroyers. Perhaps we are. But it was that same part of us that let us stand against this enemy for centuries, while you lived in peace. We are not your saviors. We are not your conquerors. We are your shield, and now, we ask you to raise your shields beside ours. The words struck deep. In that moment, the galaxy no longer saw humans as outcasts. They saw them as warriors scarred for the sake of others, survivors who had carried a burden too heavy for any one people to bear. The council voted not with hesitation but with resolve. Every fleet, every resource, every hand would prepare for the coming war. Walls of steel and fire would rise at the edges of known space. For the first time, the galaxy stood not divided but united. And as those preparations began, the vigilant dawn turned once more toward the darkness. It did not stay to bask in honor. It did not wait for thanks. Its engines lit like a burning sun, carrying it back into the void where the maw was gathering. The sight of it leaving carved itself into memory. The lone warship, scarred but unbroken, marching back into the storm it had never abandoned. From the great cities to the smallest colonies, people watched that image and felt something stir in their hearts. Not just fear, not just dread, but determination, because now they understood. Humanity was not the curse of the galaxy. Humanity was its warning bell, its battered sword, its relentless spirit. And though the future was uncertain, one truth remained clear. The galaxy would not face the darkness alone. The dawn of war had come, and at its front stood humanity, carrying fire into the night.